Let me tell you about this young man. I got a chance to meet him, and we chit chat a lot of times backstage. We both have this watch fetish of nice watches. Trust me. I want to share with you. This young man got involved with our business, and I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'm going to let him tell the story. But he's done so well in his town. I believe it's over 3,000 customers he put on for ACN. I'm gonna say it again, Mr. Ismail, 3,000. In his town. He did so well, he closed down the Verizon store and the US Cellular store in his town. The IBOs went out, started getting customers like crazy. And I just thought, we haven't heard from him in about a year or so. And I want him to come back to hear, and maybe some of you new folks to understand this is a great business you're in, but also understand the power of the cell phone business. Without further ado, my dear friend, Regional Director, Mr. Cameron Channell. Can we give him a hand?
Well, Mr. Thomas, thank you very, very much for having me on the call today. It's always a pleasure to see your face. It's been too long since we've sipped some good bourbon and compared timepieces, so hopefully we'll be able to do that again soon. And I just have to give a shout out to your whole team, everyone on here. I know Miss Jocelyn Driscoll is on here, a good personal friend and longtime mentor in the business. So it's always amazing to be back with the ACN family and sharing what we do. So just briefly, December of this year will be my 7-year anniversary in ACN. I got started in December 2014 with ACN. And as Mr. Thomas mentioned, I live in a tiny, tiny little town. He kind of transposed the number of customers and the population, but that's okay. It's a town of about 3,000 people. I wish every one of them was a customer. I really do. Yeah, it's a town of about 3,000 people in a county of only about 9,500 people. Very rural farming and ranching community, kind of in the middle of nowhere up by the Oregon and Nevada border. And so it wouldn't be exactly what you'd consider a hot spot for business or even for building ACN, but it's proven to be something that we didn't view as a hurdle. We didn't view it as an obstacle to keep us and our team here from building a strong business. And so I actually looked at ACN about 12 years ago originally. Went to a PBR here in my hometown and took a look at it. I thought it was a good idea, but it was just bad timing for me. But one of my best friends got started at that time. He's a regional director, Mr. Jonathan Bannister, which many of you know. And Jonathan stayed the course. The whole team above him evaporated within a couple of months of him getting started. He didn't really know what he was doing or how to do it. He was kind of left out in the weeds by himself for many, many years. So the only thing he really knew how to do was get customers, and that's what he did. And he built a strong, strong customer base at a time in ACN when it was very uncommon to have 100 personal customer points. Jonathan was pushing 200 personal customer points. And so fast forward to 2014, myself and Mr. Dustin Titterington, another regional director in our team in the same town. Many of you know Dustin as well. We both got started within a couple of days of each other. And Dustin and I, if you know us, you know we don't do anything halfway. It's either fifth gear penned or not at all. And that's how we came into ACN. But you follow your leadership. You do what your leaders do. And at that time, our leader was a customer machine. So we went after it. We started building a customer base. And within about 2.5 years of our start date, we put both the Verizon and the US Cellular store in our local town completely out of business. Doors closed, no longer in existence. So, and that's a very abbreviated thing. It was 2.5 years worth of hard work that got that done. And it wasn't just by me. It wasn't just by Dustin and Jonathan. In a town of about 3,000 people, we ended up with almost 50 IBOs, a bunch of them well over 100 personal customer points. Many of you might know Miss Wendy Baird, an ETL in my team for a while there. She was at over 400 personal customer points. We went to town, and there's a reason why. And this is really the point of a leadership call, is there's always hurdles. We can always find excuses for why this doesn't work for me, or why I can't get customers, or why I can't find an IBO. And there's a million of them. There's so many reasons you could come up with. We could talk for a month and not cover all the reasons IBOs have thrown out over the year for why ACN doesn't work for them. But I've yet to meet anyone who is in a situation quite like us, because of all of the services that we had at the time, the only services that worked where we lived was Flash Verizon, Dish Network, and credit card processing. That was it. We had nothing else in the portfolio. And so we went after the one thing in particular that we knew everybody had, and that was a cell phone. Now, we got Dish customers as well. We converted pretty much every business in town, minus a handful that deal with the federal government and have to be able to accept their credit cards. There's about 4 or 5 businesses left in town that aren't on Sphere now. I mean, we mopped up all the other customers we could, but the bread and butter was going to be cell phones, and we knew it. We knew that was the only real leverage we had here to use favor, help, try, why, and get people to look at the business and get people to become our customers. And we didn't reinvent the wheel on that. Favor, help, try, why. You hear that over and over again. If you've been in ACN for years, you've heard it thousands of times. You've seen it demonstrated thousands of times. If you're new to the business, I guarantee you've recently heard one of the leaders talk about using favor, help, try, why. Hey, do me a favor, help me out, try one of my services. Here's why I'm building this business. And be real with them. Don't give them some superficial nonsense about why you're building the business. We all have a real deep-seated why, and that can be tough to talk about sometimes, but share that hard, deep-seated truth with your customers, with your people, and you will absolutely end up building strong customer base. Now, we did both. Like I said, in a town of about 3,000 people, we ended up with about 50 IBOs. You could have walked downtown in Alturas at that point, stopped any random stranger you came in contact with on the street, in the grocery store, at the gas station, said, hey, have you ever heard of ACN? And I guarantee you they were going to rattle off a list of names that they knew of people who were in ACN, a PBR they'd been to at my house or Jonathan's house or Dustin's house, or they were already a customer and working on their Strive for 5. There was nobody in this town that you could talk to that wasn't aware of ACN and what we did. But that being said, it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. Everyone knows where you live. Everyone knows where you work. Everyone knows your family history. Everyone knows where you went on vacation last weekend. And so you have to approach people like that, your inner circle, which is where we all start with the people we know, with truth and realism. When I mention favor, help, try, why, the why is honestly the most important part of that equation, and your real why. You know, your social media profile leaning up against the Lamborghini you don't own or the dream house you want to buy, that's not motivating to anybody. Nobody cares that that's why you want to make a bunch of money to have some nice things. And there's nothing wrong with nice things. I'm a luxury watch dealer. I deal in nice things all the time with things that are non-essential to day-to-day life, but people spend a lot of money on. The reality is people want to be involved with someone that they connect to, and they connect with people who are real with them, who are truthful about why they do what they do. We all have family, we all have history, we all have our own baggage that we carry with us everywhere that we've come through life with, and all of those things typically are going to come together as a reason why you initially said yes to ACN. Whether you told anybody or not, you know it. In here, you know what your motivating force is, and you need to be able to figure out very briefly and concisely how to communicate that to another human being in a way that they will understand why this is so important to you. And if you do that, you will absolutely be able to build a business on a massive scale. And I know this because I know most of you don't live in places like where I live. In fact, I'd be curious to see if anybody on this call lives in a town as small as I do or as remote as I do. Most of you I know live in bigger towns or cities. You might think it's a small town, oh, it's only 50,000 people. That is a metropolis to me. I have to drive 100 miles to find a Walmart. I got to drive almost 3 hours to hit a Costco. There's nothing here. We have a Rite Aid, a grocery outlet, and a Subway sandwich shop. That's it. There's nothing else here. So what I'm going to tell you is this. We have a huge portfolio of services. It can be overwhelming trying to figure out what customer to get. And sometimes it's like herding cats because you're chasing Vivint, you're chasing electricity and natural gas, and you're trying to get a Flash Mobile customer, and you're trying to do this and you're trying to do that. And that's fine. But I can tell you in ACN, every IBO that you talk to that has hundreds and hundreds of personal customer points has typically done it in one particular service. Find your bread and butter. It could be whatever you want it to be. All the services are great. I'm going to give you a little tip. Pick one that is life of customer, life residuals, that doesn't go away in 2 years. Not that you're going to pass those customers up. If they hit you up and want something, great, sign them up. But we have a lot of premier services now that are for the life of the customer and lifetime residuals that never go away. Long-term, stable residual income. Dig into that service. As Mr. Thomas mentioned, we're shifting to a lot of how-to. There's so much training now from ACN virtually every single day available to teach you the ins and outs of every service. Find the service you like. Find the one that works in your hometown where you live. Find the one that you feel is going to be the most acceptable to your friend group and your peer group and the people your kids play soccer with, their parents, and Little League and Rotary and softball, whatever clubs you're in, bowling, it doesn't matter. Find what is going to work for your group and become a master of that service. Familiar yourself with everything. You need to know a little bit about the other services, but be the guy. Everybody loves to have a guy. For a lot of people, I'm their watch guy or their bourbon guy. But outside of those two things, I am also now the Vivint guy. In my circle of business associates and clients and contacts, a lot of them are watch dealers, they're watch collectors, security is a big thing. I've used Vivint as a way to supplement my watch business. And now, in addition to being a watch guy, those guys, oh yeah, call Cameron, he's the Vivint guy. He always has great deals for us, he hooks us up. And I have a steady stream of Vivint customers coming in all the time because of that. Be the guy. I've had to shift. We tapped out our market here. ACN has shifted. We no longer have Flash Verizon. T-Mobile doesn't work in the town where I live. So you have to pivot. You have to move with the times. And everything, as Jim Rome says, everything comes in a season. And ACN, there are seasons of services. We have premier services, and over time they develop. Sometimes we move on, we bring in something new, but become a master of whatever that premier service is for you and be the guy. When that type of service comes up in conversation, you want your name to be the first name on the lips of the people that you talk to. Oh, absolutely. I got a guy, Sam Foster. He is the man. He absolutely hooked me up. Here's his number. Give him a call. Tell him I sent you, white glove treatment. He's going to make sure you're taken care of. We had hundreds of walking billboards for us in this town. When people would ask, who's the Verizon guy? While the Verizon store was still open, if you asked who the Verizon guy was, they would not mention the Verizon store in town. They would mention my name or Dustin's name or Jonathan's name or Wendy's name. It got so bad that towards the end, the Verizon guy, the actual Verizon retail store in town, people would show up for service and he wouldn't even bother to help them. He would refer their number to one of us because he was bleeding money out the back end. Customers were leaving, he was done. And the crazy thing is, we tried to get him in the business. We presented him with ACN. We wanted him to be on board as an IBO, and he couldn't wrap his head around it. Oh, I've got this store, I'm making so much money at it. And it's like, all right, We warned you, game on. Be the guy. Be the person that people know and trust and will come to. And your story can be whatever you want it to be. Now, in a bigger city, yeah, shutting down a local cell phone store or something might be a little out of the norm or out of the grasp, but that doesn't mean that you won't be the first person that people think of when they think of whatever it is, that services that they need. Someone's complaining about their cell phone. Someone's complaining about their electricity bill. Someone's neighborhood's been getting broken into a bunch and they're worried about security. Someone's ID just got hacked and they're trying to clean up the mess. Your name needs to be the first one that comes to mind with the people that you deal with, so that always you'll have referrals coming your way. And of course, as ACN goes, always show those people the business first. Always mention that there's an opportunity there for passive residual income. And I can tell you that, like I said, I've been in for 7 years, and I'm not going to lie. Last year, COVID, 2020, 2019, everything shut down. 2020, well, I don't know. It's all running together now. Whatever year that was, that we were all in lockdown for a year. I didn't do much for ACN. I kind of took a year off. I played golf every day, sold some watches, drank some bourbon, did whatever I wanted to. And you know what? That residual check hit my account every 30 days without fail the entire time. It never dropped a penny. In fact, it went up because I did slide a few customers in here and there, but that money showed up and I never had to think twice about it, because ACN is true long-term residual income. It's that freedom to come and go as you please. It's a season. Sometimes you're pushing hard. Sometimes you're pulling back. Sometimes you need to spend time with the family. It doesn't matter. As long as you tend to that business, it'll always be there for you. That money will keep coming in and you'll have the freedom to do the things that you want to do with your life. So go after it. Absolutely, just go after it. Become a master of one of our premier services and be the guy. Mr. Thomas, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
That was powerful. I'm going to regurgitate a couple of things that you said that I think was super powerful. In a town of 3,000, they closed down the Verizon and the US Cellular store. He has an ETL. Listen up. Before ACN even had, back in those days, it was maybe 20 points. And I know Miss Johnson Driscoll know what I mean, the Kings. And I know Brian Baker remembers this. Miss Evelyn Fizz remember this. Back in the day, it was only 20 points. And he had IBOs, ETLs, an ETL that had 400 personal points. Years ago, most of the 50 IBOs that they had in the town all had 100 points years ago before we took it to where we're at today, folks. Can you let's write this down. Put that in. What he said, there's only had 3 services in his town: Flash, Dish, and credit card processing. And now we have a smorgasbord. Come on, folks. He's in a small town. What could we do if we really got after it like they got after it? And he says, use what works, use the system. Help, try, favor. Let's say it again. Help, try, it still works. Don't invent the wheel, try to add new words. And then he says, tell them the fourth thing he said is tell them your why and be authentic with that. Being trusting the why, tell the truth and being realistic. Don't leave it beside somebody's Lamborghini, Maserati, Ferrari, talking about take a picture. No, like he says, you're not being real. They know, and believe it, people know you're not real. Become a master of one of the service. We talked about Vivid this past week. 8 points. 8 points. The life of, and like I said, the life of it, that's 10 years, 120 months of payout. That's incredible. And he says, be that guy/girl and learn how to pivot when you have to. My God, that was wonderful. Let's do this. Let's take on just 7 questions. Put it in the chat. And while you're putting in the chat, 7 questions for Mr. Channell, 7 questions. Sir, by the way, while we're waiting for the questions to come in, tell me about that watch on your arm. I was looking at it.
Yeah, this is a sexy one. It's a Panerai. It's called the Equation of Time. This is a horological masterpiece. It actually tracks the difference between the real time and the solar time. In addition to day, month, year, AM, PM, it does everything. Titanium, gold, titanium and gold. It's yeah. This is one that The Rock wears a lot, actually.
Yep.
This is one of his collection.
One of his, yeah, one of his favorites. So anybody have a question real quickly? If not, we're gonna let this, I mean, think about it. He's in Alturas, California. Those that didn't know, Alturas, California.
Okay, so there is a couple of questions here. How did you operate out of your area with others? Well, a lot of that came through referrals. You know, everyone that lives in a small town has family elsewhere. I mean, we ended up with customers literally all over the country because they referred, oh, you know, and we pushed Strive for 5 big time. Back then, Strive for 5 was still available for customers, and we helped customers get their own Strive for 5. I'd get a random customer in that wasn't attached to somebody. I would give it to one of my customers and let them know, hey, I just signed someone up under you. You only need 2 more, 3 more, whatever it is. And man, they get all excited, and suddenly their cousin in Georgia's calling me, or their, you know, their uncle in Nebraska's calling me and wanting cell service. And you get a couple of people that are Strive for 5 or help them out in that way. We helped people out with phones. That was another way we did that. Gave them a cheap phone that we had to get them by until they were ready to upgrade. So a lot of those came, you know, a lot of our out of the area business and ACN grew solely out of referrals. And then of course, you know, we have to drive 3 hours to get to a Costco. Anytime we're out of town, we're talking to people. We got business in every surrounding state around us, all the big towns around us. We have IBOs in now because when we're out of town, we're talking, we're sharing the information and doing it that way. So yeah, but don't ever underestimate the power of referrals from happy customers. You'll end up with a regular stream of people coming your way.
You know what? You remind me of a lady back east in Maryland named Patricia Moore. She had several hundred customers way before we even got this high in customer points. And same thing she said, she just sits at home, referral after referral after referral after referral after referral. Yeah. So powerful.
So one of you are asking if Flash Mobile works in our town since Flash Wireless is out. Technically, right in town, there is a T-Mobile tower. And it's basically a few years ago, T-Mobile was doing, they were calling it paint the map. They were trying to fill in blank spots in their coverage, just so that when people are traveling, they could at least get out an emergency call, that kind of thing. So when you get right into town, yeah, you've got actual 5G T-Mobile coverage. We activated a Flash Mobile phone right when it launched to test it and see how it works. And it does work, unfortunately, pretty much within a half a mile of leaving the city limits in any direction. You start to get into the hills and mountains, and the service pretty much evaporates, and hardly anybody lives in town. They all live in the rurals. So we might end up picking up an occasional customer here or there for someone who basically just lives in town, doesn't get out a lot or whatever, but mostly no, we're not, that's not our focus anymore. We just had to pivot. It's not the premier service for us. We don't even have Vivint here, so all of my Vivint customers come from outside areas. There is a Vivint. I did work with Vivint. We got them here briefly, and we piled in customers like crazy, and then we lost our closest installer, who was at that point still 2.5 hours away, and Vivint pulled the plug and stopped servicing our area. So that's still a problem. We have to turn people away a lot who ask us about Vivint, but all my Vivint customers come from outside the area at this point. Just yeah, focus on what you've got. You've all got something good. How did you come about to tell them about the ACN opportunity? Like customers or just anybody in general? If it's a customer,
just anybody in general.
Yeah, if it's a customer that gets referred to me, you know, they hit me up, say, oh, you know, Al Thomas said I should call you about cell phone service. You helped him with his. Yeah, I absolutely, you know, love to help you with that. You always ask a little bit about them, family, what their situation is, what their plans are. I always like to ask them, you know, what do you do for a living? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, and shared what I used to do. I used to be a county planner. I used to do this. Now I help people with their cell phone bills. I earn residual income from doing this. In fact, I'm always looking for, good people to work with. So if you're ever looking for a plan B or some extra income, I'd be happy to share with you how this works. And, this is something you could do on your own. A lot of people are at least passively interested. They'll jump on a quick PBR or, a Zoom meeting and check it out. It's not for everybody, but you at least get them in front of the business. They understand that, because as long as they know, if their circumstances change, they can always come back to you later. And it does. Timing. It was 5 years for me from the time I saw it to the time I joined. And I've gotten a lot of referrals for IBOs. Oh, my cousin, he's an entrepreneur. He's a hustler. He's always looking for something else. I'm going to give you, let me give you his number. I'm going to tell him you're going to call him. You need to share this with him. So just be open about the fact that this isn't some secretive thing. Anybody can do this if they want. And you're always looking for good people to work with. You don't have to give them a big spiel or a lot of details. Just let them know it's an available opportunity.
This is Julian out of San Diego. How's it going, bro?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, man. It's good to see your face.
Good
Listen,
to see you too. Been a long time, Julian.
I know, right? Jedi, man. But anyway, I did want to ask you a question because you mentioned something very powerful. You were in at a time where Verizon Flash was a deal, and then it went away, and then you had to pivot. Could you explain just for everyone, because you know that happens here and there, but some people lose their mind, right? Right. So what did you do? How quickly did you round up everyone, and how did you figure out what service to pivot to?
Okay, so that's actually a really good question. First of all, the first part of that is, how did people lose their minds? How did we respond? We responded like business owners, period. This isn't a hobby. Back then when we started, you still paid $500 to get in, which was still cheap to start a business. Business owners pivot constantly. Markets shift. The economy is up and down, and things are hot and things are not. It's feast or famine. Business owners understand that. So you need to look at this first and foremost as a legitimate business, which means things are going to happen. Things are going to go wrong. Customers aren't going to go through. A phone's not going to work. It's going to get hung up in the system. Every business has those logistical problems. And if you're going to lose your mind over that, then this is not the business for you, because this is a business where things happen. So one, your mindset has to be, this is a business when, not if, when things change, good, bad, or otherwise, I need to be able to shift with my current market and landscape and the way that goes. So for us, we're all business owners outside of ACN. It was no big deal. We knew that it wouldn't last forever. Nothing does. It's always going to pivot. It's always going to change. So we simply started to look at the rest of the portfolio of services. What else do we have? What is our best line of approach? And what's going to give us the most bang for the buck? For the time and effort we're going to put in to sign up a customer, where do we want to focus our time? What's going to give us the most points, the most residual, the most stable long-term residual? Because, I've purged more customers than probably most of you on this call have ever even had in your business. It's just a fact. I mean, thousands of customer points over 7 years I've purged out of my business. I maintain a couple of hundred all the time, but way more than that have come and gone over the years. So I look for the stable services. So for us, it was a pretty quick shift to Vivint. 8 points, life of customer. It's one of those services where once they have it, they don't change it. It's not like you'll lose more cell phone customers just jumping carriers because someone else got a good deal and they're going to give me free phones and their leases. I mean, that's just business. It happens. But Vivint, that's where we kind of focused in on, because we felt it was going to be the most stable, the most long-term. And although it's a little bit narrower of a customer base versus cell phone, there's still millions of people out there that don't have home security. And it's just a matter of getting a few customers that are absolutely beyond belief happy about their system and the service and to share it. And that's where I'm at now, in multiple groups of watch dealers, not private individuals, but dealers who have their own businesses and their own clientele. I've secured a lot of their business locations, and now I'm the guy in the group that they funnel stuff to me. Hey, I got a client, he just spent $50,000 with me on some watches. He's wanting to know what safe he should buy about security. And I recommended that he give you a call and that he get a Vivint system in the house. So again, it's be the guy, be good at what you do, provide that service, and just be prepared to pivot. We know the co-founders are always working on our behalf. They're always working to make ACN better, but change isn't always better for the individual. Losing Flash Verizon wasn't a good thing for us, but that doesn't mean that the co-founders don't have the company's best interest in mind and that something else better won't come along down the line. We know that they're always working for us, but change is difficult and it's not going to be good for everybody. So you have to be ready to pivot like a legitimate business owner. Be ready to move when the market shifts, because ACN is constantly on the move, and that's a good thing.
Hey, I want to thank Julian Lewis for that question, because he asked that question so all of you IBOs would understand, not for himself personally, but so you IBOs understand, like Mr. Cameron said, number one, he's a business owner, he's a business person, and so are we. So be ready to pivot at all times. That's what he said. Next question. Thank you so much. Mr. Lewis, thank you for asking that. That was powerful for the group to hear.
Yeah, good question. What is your top phrase / response to close them? I'm going to be real with you. I'm not the hard close guy. I'm a high shark personality. I could talk a bald man into buying combs if I really wanted to, but I've learned in ACN in particular, and I bring this approach to all of my business now. I don't want to drag anybody across the finish line to do anything.
Amen.
If I have to hard close you, if I have to convince you that you need to buy this cell phone, get this cell phone plan from me, you're going to be the person calling me nonstop, complaining about every little detail that doesn't work and this and that. And in 2 months, you're going to jump ship and go somewhere else anyways. And my time's more valuable than that. IBOs, it's the same thing. Either you see the value of what we have here or you don't. If I have to drag you across the finish line to get you to sign up, then I'm going to have to drag you across the finish line to get you qualified. I'm going to have to drag you across the finish line to get your, and I haven't got time for that. I play golf every day. I got my own things to do. I do what I want. I've built my business, so I have time freedom. I don't want to babysit people. I want to see the value of what I have to offer. And it's the same in my watch business. You found it on Google somewhere for cheaper, then go buy it somewhere else for cheaper. That's not my problem. You're working with me because you know the value that I bring and you know the value of what I have to offer. Otherwise, we have no business being in business together. And that's my personal approach to ACN. You like it, you see the value, I will work with you 100% all the way to help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve. If you don't, I'm not the hard close guy that's going to try to force you into doing something you don't want to do. Crazy.
Thank you, sir. Listen, everybody, can we put in the chat or take your phone off and let's show Mr. Channell, Cameron Channell, some love.